at number 10, we have George Parrott, who was just 17 years old when he was arrested, and soon after he was convicted of rape and an assault that took place back in 1987. Well, George spent 30 years in prison after it was deemed that he was actually wrongly convicted due to bogus FBI evidence.
He was convicted mainly on an FBI agent's testimony about a microscopic hair found in connection with the rape. But a judge found that evidence to be flawed and released Parrott on personal recognizance Wednesday.
This is why the justice system is just so messed up. A lot of times police officers or FBI agents are convinced, they're so convinced that this is the guy that committed the crime. So what they do is they do anything they can to get a conviction, to put this guy behind prison and to do it fast. Well, we have witnessed in the past them giving false statements, tampering with evidence, and a lot of times we have witnessed FBI agents and police officers get it wrong. They convicted the wrong person.
Did you ever lose hope after all those years?
No, absolutely, of course. I've been in 30 years. A crime I didn't commit, of course I lost hope.
For people who may not have hope, what do you want them to know? It's got to pull out.
Don't give up. Don't give up, that's for sure. Don't give up.
Alright, moving on this list, at number 9, we have two best friends, Ricky Jackson and Willie Bridgman. And they were arrested at the age of 16 years old for a murder that took place in Cleveland, Ohio. Harold Franks was the victim. Well, he was attacked with acid and he was shot twice with a .38 caliber gun. Both teenagers received the death penalty back in 1977, but it was later turned over to life imprisoned.
Yes. It was young Vernon's testimony that put Jackson on death row.
I could halfway accept my punishment if I was guilty, but, excuse me.
This story takes a huge turn because after spending 40 years behind bars, a judge released them, and the judge said they actually have the wrong people. Ricky and Willie were convicted after a false testimony that was given by a 12-year-old boy. These two friends didn't commit the crime, so for the past 40 years they were serving time for someone else's crime. Their lives has been taken away from them.
Words can't express how I feel right now. I'm just glad to be out, glad to be a free man.
What are you going to do today? Where are you going to go?
Wow. I mean, you know, you sit in prison for so long, you think about this day, but when it actually comes, you don't know what you just want to do something, you know?
This guy missed out on school, getting his first job, finding a wife, having kids. Being a teenager, you get to experience a lot of things in life, and it is a very important and crucial time in someone's life. Number 8, we have Howard Christensen. He is a Chicago native who became the nation's longest serving prisoner before he finally completed his time. At the age of 17 years old, Howard committed murder and was given a life sentence without parole to 200 years in prison. But that was later overturned to a 64-year prison sentence, which is pretty much life in prison. Well, Howard actually outlived his prison sentence and was able to see the light of day. Well, just for a few years. Howard was 79 years old when he was finally released. Howard was only able to live 2 years as a free man before he passed away. Moving right along here, we have Bobby Bostic, and he comes onto our list at number 7. Bobby was just 16 years old when he was convicted of committing 17 crimes. Some of them include robbery and kidnapping. He fired a gun at 2 people. While he has been in prison for more than 20 years now, he is now in his 40s. Bobby on our list has one of the longest prison sentences. He was actually sentenced to 241 years. Many people believe that this was way too harsh for this crime. Murder was not committed, although there was near death. Back in 2010, the Supreme Court decided that their initial decision was unconstitutional and minors should have the opportunity to demonstrate maturity and rehabilitation. Even with that though, Bobby won't be eligible for parole until he's 112 years old. So if somehow he's able to outlive that, he has a chance of being a free man one day. Let's talk about a case I've paid close attention to. I've been very fascinated with it. Well, at number 6, let's talk about Brendan Dassey. Probably sounds familiar to you guys. I talk about him a whole lot. Well, he's the nephew of Stephen Avery, the guy from Making a Murder documentary. It's on Netflix.
How you doing, buddy? Good.
Then they sat down with Brendan. Brendan's lawyers say investigators took advantage of him.
then just 16 years old and with a low IQ, manipulating him into making a false confession.
Brendan Dassey was just 16 years old when he was convicted of first-degree murder and second-degree sexual assault mutilation of a corpse. I believe Brendan Dassey is innocent and was framed. He was sentenced to life in prison with the earliest possibility of parole in 2048. So that's when Brendan Dassey turns 58 years old. Right now he's 28 years old. Stephen Avery, his uncle, is also still in prison, and he has served 18 years for a crime he never committed. He was released, but then he was sentenced again for a new crime, and I don't believe he committed that either. I think he was framed by the same people who convicted him wrongly the first time. So in total, Stephen Avery has been in prison for 30 years, and you know what, I can't wait for season 2 of Making a Murderer to be released on Netflix because I need answers. And actually at number 5, let's talk about Stephen Avery a little bit more. He was also a teenager when he was first in prison. Stephen was 18 years old when he was convicted of sexual assault and attempted murder, and this was back in 1985. Like I said, after 18 years and after DNA testing became more available, it was proven that Stephen Avery was actually the wrong guy and evidence was tampered with by local police. He was serving a 30-year sentence.
Back home, relatives waited patiently. After 18 years, the last few hours were the longest, until finally, the reunion.
Too long, though, too long. Oh, God, I love you, baby.
Stephen Avery was only free for a few years until he was convicted for a murder. This was back in 2007, and he was given a life imprisonment sentence.
They keep on trying to do something with me. They're trying to find ends. They don't believe none of us. You know, whatever we say, they just don't. We're all liars.
And next up, number 4, we have 65-year-old Wilbert Jones, who was just 19 years old when he was sentenced to prison. He served 46 years for a crime that he didn't even commit. His conviction was just recently overturned. Back in 1971, Jones was found guilty of kidnapping and sexually assaulting a nurse in Louisiana. Apparently, authorities withheld evidence that could have exonerated Jones decades ago. I think this man should have been rewarded millions of dollars, although money won't give his life back. The state of Louisiana took away this man's life. I would be super upset in this situation, but for some reason Jones, he's just thankful for being free.
No, I forgave. You know what I'm saying? I forgive. Because the love of God and the Holy Spirit in my life, I don't have no bit in my life. I got to go the rest of my life.
Number 3, we have James Robertson, who actually inspired a new documentary on Netflix called I Am a Killer. I'm currently watching it and it's really good. I don't know why I'm so interested in these topics, but they just fascinate me. And I swear, if I wasn't a YouTuber, I'd want to get into criminal psychology or work for Netflix and create these documentaries. James Robertson has had a whole life of crime. He was just 16 years old when he was sent to prison, but his crime started at a much younger age. He grew up with a family that are alcoholics and abusive. Robert is currently in prison for a crime he committed back in 1980, and it was for theft. He has been in prison for the past 37 years. For 20 of those years, James Robertson was left in solitary confinement because he was hard to deal with. So for 23 hours in the day, he's stuck in a very tiny dark room. He doesn't get much visitations. Actually, I don't think he's allowed them at all. Barely no sunlight. And when he does get out of his cell for 1 hour a day, he's in another small cage outside. So James couldn't take this anymore, so he decided to kill his new cellmate, who was a pedophile, because he wanted to be placed on death row. I mean, is this real life right now? While on death row, the rules are different. You actually get a bed to sleep on, you actually get more food to eat, you get medical care. Also, James didn't want to be in prison while he was older because he said, well, he's just going to become an easy target for people to beat up. So he just wants to leave the world. So crazy, because he was just trying to fight for the death penalty, but it took him a long time to actually get it, this is a very unusual request. Number 2, we have Joseph Ligon, who was just 15 years old when he was convicted of murdering 2 people back in 1953. Well, it's been 63 years since he was first sentenced to prison. Currently, Joseph is about 80 years old, and he has spent most of his life in a Philadelphia prison. He actually made it into the news a few years ago because he was given the chance of parole, but he turned it down. Joseph rejected this deal out of principle. He claims that he didn't kill anyone. It's really sad, and you know what? There are thousands of innocent people who are in prison serving times for crimes they didn't commit, and Joseph is probably one of them. Why would he choose to continue to fight for his innocence even when he could be released from prison? So now he is the longest serving juvenile lifer in the world that has been documented. And finally, we have made it to number 1. We have Paul Geidel Jr. And he is known to have served the longest prison sentence in the United States. Back in 1911, Paul was convicted of second-degree murder at the age of 17 years old. When Paul was released from prison, he was 86 years old, meaning he was in prison for 68 years. He was locked away in many different New York State prisons. Paul lived to see the day when he was actually released from prison. When Paul was paroled from prison, he didn't want to leave because that was the only life that he knew. He would probably go into shell shock because the world, it just changes so fast. He was in prison from 1911 to 1979. So let me tell you guys quickly what was invented during that time. So just to name a few, we had radio broadcasting, helicopters, microwaves, ovens, credit cards, widescreen cinemas, videotape recorders, video games, man went to space, computers were a new thing, and I mean all of those things. If you lived in prison, you probably never had any access to any of them. I don't even know if you get newspapers or if you read about it. A new computer, well, what is that? But if you get released into the new world, it can be very confusing.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Matthew Wayne. We have all had quite the year trying to adjust to the differences we are currently facing, but some people certainly have an easier time adjusting than others. Matthew Wayne is a small British YouTuber who posts videos of himself playing paintball, but he found himself in some hot water earlier this year. For some reason, Matthew decided it would be a good idea to film himself calling in a bomb threat to a hospital. Apparently, he was upset at some treatment he had received closer to the beginning of the global spread of the coronavirus and thought that it was an appropriate way to deal with his feelings about it. During the phone call, Matthew allegedly referred to himself as a YouTuber, made a ton of accusations towards the staff, and apparently also made a racist remark. I can totally understand being frustrated, but this really takes it to another level. Shockingly, Matthew was only sentenced to 12 weeks and a few small fines. Let's hope this was enough for him to have learned his lesson. In our number 9 spot today, we have Kangwa Ren. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. Kangwa Ren, who is better known as his YouTube name Reset, makes gaming videos and has over 1 million subscribers on his channel. In 2017, he made a video that saw him remove the cream filling from an Oreo, replace it with toothpaste, and then give it to an unsuspecting homeless man who later threw up. When people began to give him backlash for this video, he removed it and instead put up another video of him giving the same man a $20 bill, as if that's compensation enough. The judge in this case certainly took into consideration the fact that he had made more than $2,000 on this video alone, so the measly offer of $20 was most certainly insufficient. The court decided on a 15-month sentence and a fine of $20,000, as well as a 5-year YouTube ban. It is unclear if Reset ended up actually heading off to serve his sentence or not, but his channel hasn't been posted on since August of this year. In our number 8 spot, we have Austin Jones. Austin Jones was a YouTube musician who started on the platform all the way back in 2007. Last year, Austin was sentenced to 10 years in prison for soliciting underage girls for photos and videos. The complaints started in 2015, and in 2017 he was arrested. He ended up pleading guilty and admitted to using different platforms such as Facebook and iMessage. The 10-year sentence comes from him pleading guilty on one count of the things that he was accused of. Initially, his YouTube account was demonetized once the allegations came to light, but it was quickly removed entirely following the guilty plea. In our number 7 spot today, we have Ruslan Sokolovsky. Okay, this one is kind of crazy. Russian YouTuber and law student Ruslan Sokolovsky is facing jail time because he was playing Pokemon Go in church. He had filmed himself playing the game and a few weeks later was awoken in his apartment by the police coming in to arrest him. Apparently this is a crime in Russia because it is obviously offensive to the people who were there to worship. I completely agree that it was extremely rude and distasteful for him to pull this kind of a stunt, but 5 years in jail for playing Pokemon Go does seem kind of insane. Like, Matthew Wayne called in a bomb threat to a hospital and got a significantly lighter sentence. After Ruslan was arrested, he was on house arrest for a while and is banned from speaking to anyone other than his lawyer and the people who are investigating him. This arrest is seen as very controversial and has a lot of people discussing freedom of speech laws. While I'm not exactly sure if there has been an official sentencing or not, Ruslan is facing 5 years in prison for this offense. In our number 6 spot, we have Billy Altidore and Ivani Lewis. Billy Altidore and Ivani Lewis are the YouTube couple who run their channel called Beam Squad. The pair post videos of them and their family doing challenges and pranks and just talking about their daily lives. Last year, the couple was arrested and charged for fraud, which they of course documented on their YouTube channel. According to court documents, the pair used stolen identities to create fake bank accounts and debit cards. The pair then used personal information that they had stolen in order to access the Social Security Administration website, where they then made direct benefit payments into their new fake bank accounts. There were allegedly 1,400 people whose benefits they tried to access, and of course some were successful and some were not. After this, the couple then used stolen personal information to file false tax returns and again directed the false tax returns into their fake bank accounts. Of course, they were eventually found out, which is what led to their arrest. They both pleaded guilty, and Billy was sentenced to 2 years, while Ivani was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day. And they were also fined close to $94,000 in restitution. Billy has since gone away to serve his time, but because of the fact that they have kids, Ivani will be waiting to serve her time until Billy is back and able to take care of the kids. Their channel continues to grow and gain subscribers and sees around 12 uploads a month. In our number 5 spot today, we have Daniel Silva. Daniel is a YouTuber and tattoo artist who may be better known for his time on the tattoo competition show Ink Master. Daniel uploads videos of him tattooing and having conversations with celebrities, influencers, and athletes. Things took a really sad turn for Daniel earlier this year though. On May 10th, Daniel was speeding his 2020 McLaren 600 LT with his friend and famous YouTuber Corey LeBerry in the passenger seat when he accidentally lost control of the vehicle and ended up crashing into a stop sign and tree. This crash ended up taking the life of Corey. Daniel was then arrested and ended up pleading no contest in July. In August, he was sentenced to 364 days in jail as well as 5 years of probation, 250 hours of community service, and if he fails to comply with any of his probation terms, he'll be facing a 4-year prison sentence. Daniel has actually since been released from prison, but his YouTube and Instagram accounts both remain inactive. In our number 4 spot today, we have Ferdian Paleka. Earlier this year, the YouTuber was arrested after posting an extremely transphobic video. The video showed him handing fake aid packages to trans women that were actually filled with bricks and garbage and rotten vegetables. Of course, this video came under immediate fire for its disturbing content, and Ferdian responded by posting a fake apology video. He was charged with online defamation under the Information and Electronic Transactions Act, which carries a maximum 4-year prison sentence, as well as deliberately breaking the law and bringing harm to others, which is punishable by up to 12 years in prison under the same law. After Ferdian's arrest, there were videos posted that quickly went viral of him being ordered around to do embarrassing tasks by other inmates. The videos received comments from his parents about how much it angered them to see their child being humiliated publicly. They are absolutely right, because that is not okay, but it sure is ironic. Luckily for Ferdian, the trans women that he victimized have decided to drop the charges against him, so he ended up being released from police custody earlier this year. But of course not before he made a snide comment that he was more comfortable in his jail cell rather than in his car before driving off. Hopefully this was just an ill-timed joke and he has learned his lesson, because things truly could have been a lot different for him. His YouTube channel remains active with just under 300,000 subscribers. In our number 3 spot today, we have Andre Pies. Andre is a Russian YouTuber with roughly 800,000 subscribers who posts videos of himself exploring abandoned sites and bunkers. He was arrested in August for allegedly obtaining and spreading state secrets. He has yet to face trial, but he is still in police custody and could potentially receive up to 8 years if he is found guilty. It is unclear if Andre plans to plead guilty or not to the charges against him. His lawyer has said that the charges are not linked to any of his social media posts, but some people speculate differently because of the fact that there is a suspicious anonymous comment on one of his Instagram posts. The post was from when Andre gained access to a functioning radar system that Russia uses for its nuclear strike early warning system, and the comment was promising him that big trouble was coming his way, which is super super ominous. As of right now, his channel is still up, but it hasn't been posted on since an almost 3-hour live stream on August 2nd, where he apparently speaks about his legal issues, but unfortunately I can't speak Russian and the English captions aren't so great, so I have no idea what exactly he is saying. In our number 2 spot today we have Anthony Locke. Anthony Locke, who's better known as his YouTube name Gas Kings, was a YouTuber who posted car videos. He has almost 700,000 subscribers and his most viewed video has 7.7 million views. In 2018, Anthony went to trial over a scamming scheme. According to the court, Anthony and his partner Ray decided to set up a fake website in order to scam people out of their pensions. The website claimed that you could sign up and invest your pension funds and that half would most definitely be returned back to you, but the other half would be invested into different eco-friendly firms, which ended up not being true at all. Instead, Anthony took the money from pensioners and spent it on expensive cars. If stealing people's money wasn't bad enough already, apparently some of the victims were already in financial turmoil, which certainly just makes the matters worse. Anthony stole close to £1 million and was charged with 23 counts of fraud and 3 counts of money laundering, which landed him a 5-year sentence. In our number 1 spot today we have German Abraham Loera Acosta. German was a small but mighty YouTuber. He would put out motivational messages for his subscribers to view and was known for his catchphrase, "I think the mind is the only thing that limits us." While this may be true and potentially some great advice, things really took a turn for this guy. In February of 2018, the 25-year-old YouTuber was part of a group in a scheme that devised a plan to kidnap a woman named Talia Dennis, who is a lawyer, and hold her hostage for ransom. The YouTuber rented a house where Talia was held captive and demanded 2 million pesos in Bitcoin in exchange for her safe return. Well, it didn't exactly work out as planned. The police rescued Talia 2 days after her kidnapping, and boy am I glad that she was uninjured, although I'm sure that would have been a super traumatic thing to have to live through. All of the men who were involved have been arrested, and just this year German received his sentence of 50 years in prison, as well as a fine of 500,000 pesos. I'm glad that the kidnapping and ransom of Talia was obviously taken very seriously. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Mona Lisa Perez. Mona Lisa is a YouTuber who used to post makeup and fashion vlogs, but now makes videos more focused on her family and her children. On June 26th, 2017, Mona Lisa and her boyfriend Pedro Ruiz set out to make an extremely dangerous video. They decided that they would put a really thick encyclopedia on his chest, and Mona Lisa would shoot a gun at the book. They were expecting the book to be thick enough to stop the bullet, but unfortunately this was a grave miscalculation. The bullet ended up going straight through the book, and Pedro passed away shortly after. Mona Lisa was arrested immediately, and talk began to swirl about who was to blame. In the end, it was decided that both of them played a role in this terrible day. Mona Lisa was sentenced on December 19th, 2017 to only 6 months in prison after she pleaded guilty to the charges. She has since served her time and will remain on probation for the next 10 years, as well as receiving a lifetime ban from owning a firearm. She continues to make YouTube videos now with 42,000 subscribers, but tends to get about 80% dislikes on her videos. In our number 9 spot today we have Valdrox Studio. But before I dive into this one, please don't forget to like this video because it really helps us out. Valdrox was a YouTuber who was known for his animated characters. He was quickly controversial for his not safe for work content and the fact that he stole a lot of his content from other artists, as well as the fact that he was apparently pretending to be a teenage girl in the beginning while he was actually a man in his 20s. On April 11th, 2019, the man behind Valdrox, named David Alejandro Pascal Argueta, was arrested after the Guatemalan police raided his home. He was arrested for receiving and selling photos of girls. He would bait people into sending him photos using the guise of collaboration. In December of 2019, he faced trial for his atrocious crimes and received a sentence of 3 years and 5 months. Unfortunately, there is a law that gives people who have been sentenced to less than 5 years the option to pay a sum of money instead of actually serving time. It is pretty upsetting that money got him out of having to actually go to jail, but he has been banned from the internet, which is most certainly for the best. In our number 8 spot today, we have Jay Station. Jay is a Canadian YouTuber who is known for his fake prank videos. He's extremely controversial because of the type of content that he posts. He has been arrested quite a few times and has even deleted his channel in the past before starting a new one. Earlier this year, Jay decided to post a video where he claimed that his girlfriend had died. This was untrue and just an idea used to garner attention and gain sympathy subscribers. Later, the Toronto police showed up at Jay's house to arrest him after that same girlfriend had accused him of a with a weapon. Jay has since been released and has begun uploading on YouTube again with the same girlfriend. The pair has claimed to have reconciled their differences, and let's hope that this is the end of Jay Station controversies. In our number 7 spot, we have VJ Nair. VJ was a YouTuber who was arrested in September for posting videos that allegedly contained extremely derogatory remarks about women. Apparently, prior to his arrest, he was actually attacked by a group of women activists who took his phone and laptop to hand over to the police. His channel has since become private since the police need to review all of its content in order to conduct their investigation. There's a lot of bizarre stuff going on in this case, like his potentially false claims to be a film director as well as a teacher, and a potentially fake PhD that he claims he has in clinical psychology. He is still under investigation at the moment, but he is facing 5 years in prison if he is found guilty. In our number 6 spot today, we have Ahmad and Zainab Hassan. The Egyptian YouTube couple are known for their comedy videos and vlogs and quickly gained success. The pair recently welcomed their first child, who they quickly began adding to their videos. Once they began to include their daughter in the videos, people began to get upset over the fact that it really did seem like the baby didn't want to be involved. There was a video where the child was clearly unhappy being posed for it and was crying uncontrollably while the pair just laughed and didn't really do anything to comfort the obviously upset child. There was a video that ended up being the final straw for a lot of people when it showed Zainab with dark paint on her face, which is already upsetting and derogatory enough, but she then clearly terrifies the child, who's again crying with what she has just deemed as a prank. The pair has since been arrested and is being investigated for child endangerment, as well as violating Article 96 of Egyptian law, which protects children from threatening situations. They haven't been officially charged yet, but could be facing life sentences depending on what the official charges ended up being. In our number 5 spot today, we have Alex and Alan Stokes. The twin YouTubers are known for their prank videos, but last year a video they uploaded has caused quite a stir for the two. Last October, they uploaded a video that was supposed to be a bank robbery prank. They called an Uber and they got in wearing black outfits and ski masks and had large duffel bags and pretended like they had just robbed a bank. The Uber driver rightfully denied to take them anywhere, and a witness thought that the boys were carjacking the Uber driver, and they called the police. Once police arrived on the scene, they approached the Uber driver with their guns drawn. This poor, unsuspecting Uber driver really didn't deserve to be caught up in all of this. Apparently, shortly after this incident, the boys did a similar prank at the University of California's Irvine campus, where police were called again. They were originally let off with a warning, but they have since been charged with false imprisonment as well as falsely reporting an emergency, which could see them each receiving a 4-year sentence. In our number 4 spot, we have one that just happened the other day. A Russian YouTuber named Stanislav Reshetnikov has been arrested and is being investigated for the death of his girlfriend Valentina. On a live stream, Stanislav was offered $1,000 to lock Valentina outside in the freezing cold. Unfortunately, he decided to do this and things really escalated. Valentina ended up passing away due to hypothermia after being left outside. Stanislav continued the live stream even after he had discovered what happened to her, and it saw him calling the paramedics, them showing up and pronouncing her dead, and then apparently continued on for another 2 hours after that. His YouTube account has of course been terminated for a multitude of reasons, and he remains in police custody as they finish conducting their investigation. In our number 3 spot, we have Pablo Benua and Ray Utami. These Indonesian YouTubers post interview videos with different celebrities on YouTube, but they have recently been arrested and sentenced for what one of their 2019 videos contained. In an interview with an actor, the pair asked about his ex-wife named Firuz. The actor then made derogatory comments about her and disclosed some extremely personal information, to which Pablo and Ray were laughing and acting disgusted. Of course, once Firuz saw this, she was rightfully upset and filed for defamation. Earlier this year, Firuz saw some justice carried out when her ex-husband was sentenced to 2 years and 4 months, Pablo was sentenced to 1 year and 8 months, and Ray was sentenced to 1 year and 4 months. This obviously came as a huge relief to Firuz, as as she posted on Instagram after all three were sentenced about her gratitude for the decision. In our number 2 spot today, we have Ryan Stone. In 2014, the YouTuber Ryan Stone led police on an incredibly dangerous high-speed chase that lasted over an hour, traveled over 60 miles, and critically injured a state trooper. Ryan had stolen a vehicle from a gas station that had a 4-year-old boy in the back seat. He ended up also stealing 2 other vehicles and hit a state trooper going 90 miles per hour. It has been said that Ryan may have been under the influence of drugs and was struggling with addiction at the time, which may have possibly led to this erratic and dangerous behavior, but others suggest that some disrespectful remarks he has made about the situation have shown him as being unremorseful. Ryan was sentenced in 2015 to 160 years in prison, but will likely become eligible for probation in 75 years, which would make him 102 years old. In our number 1 spot today, we have LensCap Productions. LensCap Productions was a YouTuber who liked to review anime content. His real name is Trey Eric Sessler, and he quickly became one of the largest anime review channels, but things took an extremely dark turn in 2012. Trey made a plan to kill 70 people at his high school's pep rally. This plan fortunately didn't end up being completed, but Trey did end up killing his own family. He said that he did it so that they would be spared from knowing his ultimate plan that never ended up being carried out. It is an unbelievably tragic situation that ended up giving Trey a life sentence in prison. There were a lot of people who originally thought that maybe he might even receive the death penalty since he lives in Texas where it is legal, but that did not happen. Trey has asked for his parole opportunities to be taken away because he said he doesn't trust himself outside of prison.
Okay, coming into number 10, we have Serena Vella, who was jailed for skipping school. 11th grader Serena loves Harry Potter, Katy Perry, and was sent to jail for cutting school. The Texan teen was struggling and she simply couldn't face it. Now, Serena is from a low-income home and her mother is unemployed. She received fines from her school for truancy totaling $2,700. Because she couldn't pay, she was sent to jail for 10 days. In jail, she was thoroughly searched and locked up amongst adults who committed serious crimes. Now, ironically, Serena had to miss 9 days of school while she was behind bars, which resulted in her being expelled, which is really sad. What kind of system locks up a teenager for skipping school rather than finding out what is causing the problem? This teenager was arrested and faced 20 years in jail for posting lyrics to a rap song on Facebook at number 9. In June 2013, 18-year-old Cameron D'Ambrosio was arrested in Massachusetts for posting a rap verse on his Facebook page. The aspiring rapper referenced the Boston bombings which happened that year, which a lot of people found very distasteful. They wrote lyrics that went, F a Boston bombing B, wait till you see that shit, I'ma be famous for rapping and beat every murder charge that comes across me. Right. The kid did find fame, but not for rapping, for being thrown in jail for a Facebook post. The teen faced 20 years for making terror threats. Coming in at number 8, we have Gonalo Wilson, who got 10 years for having consensual oral sex with another teenager. In 2005, 17-year-old Gonalo Wilson had consensual oral sex with another teenager at a New Year's Eve party. I guess it happens. The teenage girl was 2 years younger than him at 15 years old. Despite the girl, whose name is protected, repeatedly telling the courts that the act was consensual, Wilson was sentenced to 10 years in jail, which is pretty insane. Legally, as the girl was 15, she couldn't consent. However, provisions could have been taken into account had they had full penetrative sex, but there's no such legislature for oral sex. Luckily for Wilson, he was released after serving 4 years, but honestly, this is insane. Coming in at number 7, we have 20 years for a Daytona teenager. Kay Andrea Cook's sentencing was very dramatic and very sad. This 17-year-old was sentenced to spend the next 2 decades of her life in prison for carjacking and battery. The girl used a dating app to set up a robbery which resulted in her boyfriend shooting a man who was wounded but didn't die. Kay Andrea was told by her attorney that she wouldn't receive jail time if she pleaded guilty to her part of the involvement in the crime. The video of the girl's sentencing in 2017 went viral as people watched her and her mother break down. Slightly better news for Kay Andrea came in 2018 when a judge amended her super harsh sentence to 11 years. The teen and many others still feel that she was wrongly advised by her defense team in the first place. Coming in at number 6, we have Blake Lehman, who got 55 years for breaking and entering. Blake Lehman was 16 years old and living in a small town in Indiana when he made a bad decision that would land him in jail for 55 years. years. The teenager had a clean record and had not been in trouble with the law before. However, his whole life changed one night. Lehman and a group of slightly older friends, including 21-year-old Denzel Washington, got high and decided on a whim to break into a home. They noticed that their neighbor Rodney Scott's grey truck was missing. They assumed he was out. Assuming the coast was clear, they broke into his house, and although they were unarmed and for all intent and purpose, actually it turned out very badly. It seems that Scott was not out, he was upstairs sleeping, and he was awoken by the trespassers. In classic America style, he came downstairs with a shotgun and shot at Lehman and Washington. The older boy died from his injuries. Now, Indiana law protected the shooter, Rodney Scott, from culpability in the murder, and instead the teenage boy was charged with felony murder. All Lehman did was foolishly decide to break into a neighbor's home unarmed, but his friend ended up being killed by the neighbor. The blame then fell on Lehman, who was, if we remember, also shot. He was sentenced to 55 years in a prison cell. Coming in at number 5, we have the teen jailed for life for killing her child predator. Cyntoia Brown's case is still ongoing and has received a lot of media attention. In 2004, Cyntoia was served a life sentence aged just 16 for murdering a man in Nashville. Cyntoia killed a 43-year-old man who'd paid to have sex with her. The teenager's childhood was marked by abuse. She was raped and forced into prostitution. Last year, pop star Rihanna spoke up for Cyntoia on social media. She shared a text image saying, "Imagine at the age of 16 being sex trafficked by a pimp named Cutthroat. After days of being repeatedly drugged and raped by different men, you were purchased by a 43-year-old child predator who took you to his home to use you for sex. You end up finding enough courage to fight back and shoot and kill him. You were arrested as a result, tried and convicted as an adult, and sentenced to life in prison." This is the story of Cyntoia Brown. She'll be eligible for parole when she's 69 years old. Now, the last I heard, with the support of major celebrities, she is now facing a parole board. Coming into number 4, we have Kenneth Young, who was given 4 sentences for robbery. Kenneth Young received an insane amount of time behind bars for a series of armed robberies he committed in the year 2000. The then 15-year-old had been raised in a low-income neighborhood by a drug-addicted mother. He was told by a 24-year-old crack cocaine dealer, Jacques Batha, that his mother would be killed if he didn't assist him in the robberies. When captured for his involvement in a string of robberies, he was given a shocking and unprecedented 4 life sentences, despite nobody being seriously injured or killed from his actions. In 2011, he went before a judge for resentencing. Instead of releasing the young man who had already served 11 years, his sentence was changed down to 30 years, which I still think is extremely harsh. Coming into number 3, we have Bobby Bostick, who got 241 years for a string of robberies. Like many of the teenagers on this list, Bobby was born in a poor family. Growing up in Missouri, he started smoking and drinking age 10. Age 11, he started stealing cars. In 1995, when he was 16, he robbed do-gooders at gunpoint for money at Christmas time. One of his victims was grazed by a bullet. Now, this obviously is an awful crime, but Bostick received an unprecedented 241 years in jail for his crimes that didn't actually kill anyone. You guessed it, he was denied a plea deal and was met with the full fury of Judge Baker, who said, "You made your choice and you're gonna die with your choice, because Bobby Bostick, you will die in the Department of Corrections." Harsh. 241 years for a teenager who is told that they're gonna die in jail. Honestly, it's insane. Bostick has given a number of interviews about what it was like growing up in prison. Now, the judge involved has even said that she regrets giving him the sentence, saying the amount of time is ridiculous. Coming into number 2, we have Travian Blount, who got 268 years. Blount was handed 6 life sentences for robbery in 2006. At the time, the 15-year-old held up a Norfolk house party with 2 18-year-olds. Nobody was harmed and no shots were fired. The teens did steal marijuana and cell phones, as well as a small amount of cash. The jury convicted the teen for 49 separate felonies, and Blount argued he wasn't guilty of all of them. He was given 6 life sentences plus 118 years, totaling 268 years, which is outrageously harsh considering that nobody was seriously hurt, let alone killed. Blount fought his case, but his co-defendants got just 14 years as they accepted plea deals. appeals, which I think is really unfair. In 2014, he was given a partial pardon with his sentence reduced to 40 years. He still has another 29 years to go while his co-defendants will be out soon. That's what you get for trying to fight your innocence within a system rooted against you. Finally, at number 1, we have the death penalty given to a girl for killing her rapist. What kind of world are we living in where a man shoots a kid dead and he gets let off for self-defense even when the kid wasn't armed, and across the world a different teenager is sentenced to death for killing a man who repeatedly raped her? It goes to show that the justice system in the United States is just as broken as it is in Sudan, a third world country. Amnesty International were fighting for 19-year-old Noura Hussein Haman's life after she was handed the death sentence by a Sudanese court. The teenager was married against her will aged 16. She refused to consummate her marriage, so her husband got his 2 brothers and his cousin involved to hold her down while he raped her. The next day, he tried to rape her again, but she escaped to the kitchen. As he cornered her, she grabbed a knife and stabbed him, fatally wounding him. She's been in a women's prison awaiting death since 2017.
In at number 10. Let's talk about Daddy05, who thinks it's funny to prank their kids.
I didn't do that!
What the hell is that? What the hell is that?
What is this?
Cody!
You tell me! I didn't do that! You tell me what you did! I swear to God I didn't do that!
Both of the parents were in on this prank, and they thought it would be funny to yell at their son, saying, "What the heck did you do? What did you do to the carpet?" The kid was totally distraught, he was freaking out. Well, there are many of these types of emotionally damaging videos on Daddy05's YouTube channel. Well, the couple was found guilty of 2 counts of child neglect. They appeared in court and entered an Alford plea, so they were given a sentence of 5 years of probation. This actually made headline news.
Cry hysterically, and the videos racked up millions of views. But the youngest 2 are Heather Martin's stepchildren. Now their biological mom has come forward, releasing her own video with her lawyer, announcing that Michael and Heather Martin have lost custody and the children are now in her care.
I feel really bad for these kids who were just taken advantage of in this situation. They're so young and they don't really know what's going on. Let's move on to number 9. We have Sam Pepper. Sam Pepper has had a very controversial YouTube career. Over the years, he has been accused of rape, sexual assault by multiple women. Sam Pepper is also a prankster who has been seen often in his YouTube videos harassing women on the streets, and most of his videos take place in Los Angeles.
And he had a fake arm that looked like his hand was in his pocket, but then with his real hand, he would ask women's questions to distract them and then reach over and grab their butts.
Is this real life right now? Why is this even a prank? I don't see where the prank is here. Sam Pepper wasn't the smartest because he filmed himself committing a crime and he uploaded it onto YouTube for everyone to see. Back in 2014, an 18-year-old woman filed an incident report with the Los Angeles Police Department alleging that Sam Pepper raped her. Apparently the evidence wasn't compelling enough, so he wasn't arrested for that. Well, in 2016, Sam Pepper broke into an abandoned building and a police officer drove by and they noticed people inside of it. Sam Pepper took off, he tried to run away from the police, so the officer pulled beside Sam Pepper, and this is what happened.
And this cop car just is screeching up behind us. He's got his gun out the window like this, literally like in a movie. He's got his gun out his window like this. He's driving with this hand, gun in this hand. Get the f on the floor! Get the f on the floor now!
I really do feel bad for this next person at number 8, but I don't know if to feel bad or not. Well, we're talking about Mona Lisa Perez. And she's from Minnesota, who accidentally shot her 22-year-old boyfriend. I don't know if you remember this, it was all over the news. Her boyfriend is Pedro Reus III, and on his YouTube video, which got shut down, but it's been re-uploaded by other channels, so you can see some of this video still. I'm not sure why it's still up on YouTube, but in the video you can see Mona Lisa holding a gun to her boyfriend while he was holding a book in front of him. They both believed that there's a possibility that the bullet may not go through the book. Well, let me show you guys the moments before the tragedy.
Just want to see if a 50 caliber bullet can go through a book. I just want to see if a 50 caliber bullet can go through a book.
I mean, isn't that common sense? Why wouldn't a bullet be able to go through a book? It's proven to go through people, through concrete. I'm very confused right now, and why did he want to see if the bullet would go through the book and stand behind the book? How about let's see if the bullet goes through the book, but I don't want to be behind it.
The ultimate test to see if this 50 caliber bullet will go through a book is I'm just not going to just set it and just shoot it. No. I'm going to stand behind it.
Is this real life right now? This is the stupidest, spelled with 4 frickin' O's. I don't know what this guy is thinking, but he knew it was stupid and he did it anyways.
Trustworthy person that I trust in this world is my girlfriend, Mona Lisa. So if I'm gonna die, I'm pretty much ready to go to heaven right now.
Mona Lisa pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter. She was sentenced to prison, and she was also banned from owning firearms for life or collecting payments for her story. Meaning she's not allowed to receive any money if some idiot decides to raise money for her, they feel bad for her. This is just a dumb situation that didn't need to result in death. Moving on to number 7, we have Trisha Paytas.
I went to jail. And Mama's out now, Mama's okay, but I was in YouTube jail for a week.
Okay, I'm just kidding. She actually wasn't in jail. It was a prank that she played. So actually in number 7, we have Amos Yee from Singapore, who is a teenage vlogger. Well, in one of his videos, he's talking about how Lee Kuan Yew was dead and he was actually happy about it. Well, who is Lee Kuan Yew? Well, he was the Prime Minister of Singapore. Because of what he was saying in the video, he was arrested and charged. His bail was set at $20,000, and if he's convicted, he could be facing 3 years in jail. This became controversial because people believe in freedom of speech. Not too long ago, NBA star Enes Kanter tweeted out negative things about the Turkish government, and now the Turkish government sent out an arrest warrant, so now he can't even go back to his own country. If he goes, he's gonna have to serve jail time. How much time? I don't know. And it's just because of something he tweeted out. So I guess freedom of speech is there, but you can't really say whatever you want, can you? So is there really freedom of speech these days? I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. Number 6, let's talk about Troll Station. There's 4 members of this channel who was involved in fake robberies, kidnappings, and this all took place in 2015. The channel had almost 1 million subscribers at the time, and they've even done bomb hoaxes as well, which is just so stupid. 20-year-old Enrit, 23-year-old Helder Gomes, 27-year-old Daniel Jarvis, and 29-year-old Ebenezer Menza all pleaded guilty to 2 counts of using threatening, abusive, and insulting words or behaviors with intent to cause fear or provoke unlawful violence. They didn't get much time. I'm pretty sure it was like a month. It was like 4 weeks or something like that. But hopefully with that jail time, it taught them a lesson. It seems like a ton of prank channels have dealt with the law and has been sent to jail. Well, it's time to do it for the Vine. Okay, that is something I haven't heard in such a long time. Well, at number 5, we have Cameron Dallas, who did it for the Vine. Okay, not really. I don't think he did it for the Vine, but he is a Viner. Boom.
Down in the DMs. Some of y'all really need Jesus. Can I get an ow?
Well, he got himself arrested. Cameron decided to throw an insane party because why not? He's young, he's a YouTuber, he's making money. Well, things got out of hand and police were called. Well, the police settled things down and they left. Well, they were called back again, and this time when they showed up, there was a paint can thrown out the window. It was a 6th floor window, and the paint can almost hit a woman. I'm assuming that's the woman that called the police. Well, there was paint just everywhere. Cameron was arrested on charges of felony of vandalism, and he was held in $20,000 bail. At number 4, we have Cali Muscle, a guy that I've actually made a video with not too long ago. I'm not sure if you guys remember it. Well, Cali Muscle we know as this like really big YouTuber. Well, big as in like a lot of views and big as in like muscles. This guy's like beast. Well, did you guys know that he served hard time? Well, I guess for you guys who are fans of him, you guys know about it because he does talk about it a lot. Well, Cali Muscle is a bodybuilder who is originally from Oakland, California, and when he was younger, he took the wrong path in life. He got into a ton of trouble with the law. Not too long after the death of his brother, Cali Muscle found himself behind bars after an armed robbery. He spent 11 years in prison. He moved around from prison to prison, and he spent 7 years in San Quentin prison, which is a pretty tough prison. He would train daily in prison to build up his muscles into, what they are today. This guy is a total beast.
Glorified prison, jail, none of that. Because for me, truthfully, it was a waste of 11 years. But I'm here to say, you better find another way, and I did it.
Cali Muscle truly has a very inspiring story, and now he has a very positive outlook on life. And now he's making money the right way. I highly recommend you guys check out the Cali Muscle story. It's a video on his YouTube channel. It's called Monster, the Cali Muscle story. I'll link to it down below. And you guys should go over to his newest videos and put hashtag most amazing top 10 sent me here. Let's give him a shout out. Number 3.
For the first time ever, you're about to hear the 23-year-old confess to Texas Rangers how he killed his parents and older brother in cold blood.
I just don't understand how people are capable of doing such a thing. Back in 2012, when Sessler was 23 years old, he murdered his parents and brother before attempting a mass shooting at Waller High School. This is the same high school he attended. This guy's YouTube channel is LensCap Productions. He posts anime, gaming reviews. There were some videos of his brother and his pets. As his YouTube videos went on, he started to introduce guns, first comedy skits and demonstrations. Sessler has confessed to everything, and when he was asked, why did he do it? Why did he kill his family? And he had an answer to that. He said he wanted to spare his family with what he was about to do, which was becoming a school mass shooting. Things are about to get even worse. Number 2, we have school shooter Pekka Erik Avianen. He went by the username on YouTube as Thermgeist89 and Natural Selector 89. He actually uploaded videos onto his YouTube channel about school shootings and violent acts, including the Columbine High School massacre and the Tokyo subway attack, and even had videos of the bombing during the Iraq invasion. Back in November 7th, 2007, Pekka Avianen entered Jokela High School in Jokela, which is located in a town in Tuusula, Finland. The kid was just 18 years old when he entered the school, armed with a semi-automatic pistol. He killed 8 people, and there was another person who was wounded after they got shot in the toe. He then turned the gun on himself and tried to take his own life. Pekka survived his own gunshot. He was rushed to the hospital. Later that evening, he actually died in the hospital. This was the second school shooting in the history of Finland. The previous shooting was back in 1989. I'm not sure how you even top that one, but finally at number 1, we have the mass murderer, Elliot Rodger.
Hi, Elliot Rodger here. Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day in which I will have my revenge against humanity.
What is he talking about? Well, in the video he's talking about how he's trying to kill as many people as possible because he has lived a life of loneliness, and he mentions that no girl would give him attention. I mean, this kid is 22 years old. I wouldn't be too worried about that. I mean, this is just insane, but this sick guy decided to try and kill as many female blonde girls as possible. The day after he filmed this video, he did exactly what he said in the video. He went into the University of California and he opened fire. Just before he did that, he stabbed people in an apartment. He killed 6 people, injured 14 others before killing himself inside of his vehicle. The victims were ages 19 to 22 years old. Elliot uploaded his last ever video onto YouTube and he titled it Elliot Rodger's Retribution. After uploading the video, he emailed a lengthy autobiographical manuscript to some of his acquaintances, his therapist, and several family members as well. The document was titled My Twisted World, the story of Elliot Rodger. It then became available online, and now it's known as his manifesto. In it, he's talking about family conflicts, his struggles in life, especially his childhood, and as he grew older, he gained a hatred for women. He didn't like interracial couples. This guy was just sick, simply said. Starting off at number 10, we have Eddie Collins, and this is not to get confused with Eddie Collins, the American baseball player. We're talking about a man who's been locked up for the past 43 years. Eddie was serving time for first-degree murder. Throughout his prison stay, he said, and I quote, "It was a sad situation. It was something I regret and still regret." He was 21 years old, living in Arizona at the time he was locked up. He grew up in the bad part of the city where he was buying drugs with his 17-year-old brother. Well, one day when Eddie and his brother was buying drugs, they got into an altercation, and that's when Eddie pulled out a gun, and you guys know what happens next. Bam, bam, life in jail. Moving into number 9, we're talking about Otis Johnson, who just served 44 years behind bars. Otis went to prison at the age of 25 years old for attempted murder of a police officer. Otis has been locked away since the 70s, and now he's just entered into the modern society of complex technology. It's gonna be a really tough time for him, but he did commit a horrible crime. Back in 1998 was when he lost touch with his family, so he doesn't know anything about them or where they are. He's just alone in the world. When he was released from prison, they gave him his ID back and they gave him $40. Here you go, spending spree. He is for sure gonna have to renew his ID because I mean he's been locked away for a very long time, and $40 won't actually get you that far. And oh yeah, he also got 2 bus tickets. I mean, where the heck is Otis gonna go? He enters the world as a homeless person. He was released at the age of 69 years old. Most of your life is gone. You've like lived it and it was in jail. You can no longer work, so I'm not sure how he's gonna make a living. Well, I guess that was a decision he should have decided 44 years ago. Number 8, we have John Franzese, who is a 100-year-old mobster who was just released from prison after serving 50 years behind bars. John was released on the 23rd of June of this year, so that was just like weeks ago. He was released from the Federal Medical Center. John was an underboss of the crime organization. John has boasted about killing at least 60 people in his lifetime of crime. It's actually so crazy to me that this guy was allowed to be released into the public. I know he's probably now a very, very harmless old man who can't really do anything, but he didn't give those 60 people a chance at life. I don't know, I'm just saying. Serving 60 years at number 7, we have Harvey Stewart. Harvey was released back in 2011 at the age of 83 years old. Harvey Stewart has a really long rap sheet, from a junkyard heist in Houston to murdering someone. During most of his prison stay, not many people visited him, and Stewart can't recall one person who visited him in the past decade or 2. He has been isolated from the world and doesn't know what's been going on. He doesn't know the Paul brothers are taking over YouTube. So coming out after 60 years must be a huge shock to him, especially this. Like, what is that? How do you explain that that was the most popular thing this year? When he was sentenced to prison, a Volkswagen Beetle cost just $1,700. Shoes were $10. John F. Kennedy was president. People went to space for the first time. The Beatles just released their first single in the UK. So much has changed over time. Number 6, we have a man who served 62 years behind bars. We're talking about Hugh Elderman. He was a bank robber who was obviously caught. His jail sentence started when he was 23 years old back in 1917. Hugh was the sole survivor of a 4-man gang. Just a few years after being sent to prison, he was able to escape, and he escaped again in 1924. In 1927, he was released to a mental hospital where he passed away at the age of 86 years old. Hugh lost his whole life just because he wanted some money. He didn't want to work for it. He was able to steal $6,000, which is like, what the heck? But back then, that's $6,000 back then. With inflation, the money now would be worth around $124,000. That's still not enough money to just lose your whole life, like to take chance of that. I don't know. Now, this person has lived a really sad story, and this person comes in at number 5. And I'm talking about Charles Edward Ford, who outlived a 64-year-long prison sentence. The sad part is, Charles was innocent. He has served one of the longest sentences as an innocent person. He was actually released from prison just last year. Charles was convicted of murder. Well, here's a little backstory. This took place in the early 50s, and Charles is a black man who appeared in front of an all-white juror in a time where black people didn't have any rights. Charles was just 20 years old at the time, and his life just flashed before him. After 64 years, he was finally released in a nursing center where he's now 86 years old. I mean, this is a really sad situation. There's no way to give him his life back. Howard Christensen is next up on this list at number 4. Howard was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of a teacher in 1937. He was 16 years old at the time when he murdered a teacher. He committed this crime alongside a 17-year-old who was also caught for the crime. That person was also sentenced to life in prison, but they hung themselves back in 1943, just 6 years after being sentenced. About 30 years into the prison sentence, the sentence was changed from life without parole to 200 years in prison. But in 2001, after serving 64 years, he was released from prison, but just 2 years after that, he passed away. Number 3, Richard Honeck. At the age of 22 years old, Richard was sentenced to life in prison for murder of a former school friend. Life in prison sentence usually varies depending on where you live in the world. It can depend on what state you live in or what city you live in. I know this state has very different laws. Some places they even have a 3-strike law, meaning no matter what crime you commit, if it's 3 crimes, you're sentenced to life. So for Richard, he was paroled after serving 63 years and 1 month in jail. He was released at the age of 85 years old. He lived out another 12 years until he passed away at the age of 97 years old, and that was back in 1976. Now at number 2, we have Johnson Van Dyke Grigsby. Johnson was sentenced to prison back in 1908 for murder. Over the years, he was denied parole 33 times before he was finally released at the age of 89 years old because he was deemed not a threat to anyone anymore. He wasn't a threat to society, so let's just release him. He was released in 1974 after serving 66 years, but he actually quickly returned back to prison voluntarily after finding it too difficult to find a job. So he checked himself back into prison for 2 more years. years. So now at the age of 91 years old, he's finally out of prison for good. And then 10 years after that, at the age of 101 years old, he passed away. I mean, that's a really sad situation when you check yourself back into prison because you don't know any other life. Finally, at number 1, we have Paul Goodell Jr., who is known to have served the longest prison sentence in the United States, possibly the world. He was sentenced to 68 years in a variety of different New York State prisons, and he actually lived to see the day when he was released from prison. That is actually a very rare thing. At the end of his lengthy sentence, he was paroled at the age of 86 years old. Back in 1911, Paul was convicted of second-degree murder at the age of 17 years old. When Paul was paroled, he actually didn't want to leave prison because that was the only life that he knew. But at the end, he decided to leave. So when he left, there was a lot of reporters there, but he said he doesn't want any publicity. He doesn't want to be on the news. He doesn't even care if people know who he is. Paul went on to live in a nursing home before dying at the age of 93 years old, which is about 7 years after being released from prison. This guy only spent about 24 years of his entire life as a free man.